everybody. Again, my name is Tova Gar, and I am an expert in supporting teens as well as parents of teens and helping them understand their teens in the ever-changing world that we live in. My goal is to help you as parents really understand the world that your teen is living in today, which in many ways is similar to the world that we grew up in, and in many ways is very, very different. The introduction of technology and social media into their world means that things that were difficult during these already difficult teen years, whether it's social dynamics, whether it's body image, or other things which were hard when we were kids, are magnified and significantly harder in today's world. And so my goal is to both help and support you understand where they're at, what's going on with them, how is it similar and different to our challenges as teenagers, and most importantly, how can you interact and engage with them in a way that they can actually hear you. If you are listening because you have a teen that already has a cell phone, you know that trying to take that away from them can be really challenging and really, really hard. And it can be a frustrating dynamic of back and forth. And I'm going to try to explain to you today why that is happening. If you're listening today because you're preparing yourself because your teen does not have a phone yet, and you should, by the way, know that as long as your child has something that is Wi-Fi enabled, it's as if they have a phone, then you'll see what are the things that you need to put in place. And in general, what I'm going to try to show you is start you on that road of understanding what you need to put in place to support your kids to go through this period successfully so they can go through the rest of their lives successfully. But why don't we just get started right away? So I'm going to share again, for those of you who have the ability to look at slides, and for those, oh boy, it looks like I closed the presentation by mistake. This does not seem to be a good evening for technology in my house, but that is okay because we will make it happen. Whoop. Okay. Anyhow, so I'm a little confused as to why that's showing up here and not in here. Okay, there we go. Sorry for that. And let's make this happen. Okay, so once again, we are here to help you. And by the way, some of the other work I do is I actually work with teens and help them navigate this. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what do we already know? What are we seeing in teens today who have grown up with technology? What happens to them as they're going into college, as they're going into universities, kind of as a way of looking to the future in order to look back and show you what are the things that you can do today to actually make a difference and help prevent some of the things that we're seeing today. It's a complicated world, that is for sure. And it's one that despite all our attempts, we're never really truly going to understand. Because the reality is that we simply didn't grow up in it. And as much as I love my technology, and I do, I cannot and will never understand it in the way that young people who've grown with it as a natural part of who they are and their body will. And so we're going to look at what's going on. We're going to look at why this is happening, which is going to give us real insight into what you can do today. And we're going to talk about what are the next steps and what you can do to really make a difference in your family. And again, this is a call and a training that is relevant for you if you have teens that already have their own devices, and if you have kids who are getting ready to be in that stage. And as I said before, I'm going to say it again because it amazes me how many parents don't really realize this, is that if your child has any kind of device, whether it's an iPod, an iPad, or any kind of other Android device that has Wi-Fi connection, it is as if they have a phone, because there are numerous apps today that allow you to have the same kind of communication, as well as all the games, Musical.ly and video games, etc., all allow chatting connection with other people, which are places where our kids start getting into trouble, or need to start using their skills. So let's talk about what kids are facing today. What we see today, and we see this younger and younger, okay, and we see it to an extreme when our kids go off to college and start living on their own, is that we're seeing much higher levels of anxiety, depression, and self-harm. Now, teen years always have been difficult years. They've always been years of high levels of anxiety and stress. And, I don't, think about yourself for a moment in the height of your teen years when things were really difficult and challenging and frustrating. I don't know a teenager who is not at some point, very anxious and depressed. It's part of being a teenager, right? There's a reason we call it teen angst. But there is a difference between normal anxiety and even normal depression to really clinical anxiety and depression. And we are seeing more and more of that. We're also seeing self-harm, which again is a known teen thing, right? Self-harm, whether it is eating disorders, cutting, and things like that we have always seen in teens. We see them differently. First of all, we're seeing a significant amount more in boys than we've ever seen. We're seeing many more eating disorders in boys than we've ever seen. And we're seeing girls. I just had a conversation with a mother the other day. Her daughter was cutting, and she was for good reason, very anxious and very worried about it. And one of the things they found out was that a whole bunch of their girls from their class were cutting. They had seen it on some show and they were trying it out. Right, which was not the way traditionally girls have gotten into cutting, or why they cut. Right, I'm not going to get into that right now, but we're seeing a lot more experimentation also with sexuality in ways that kids didn't used to, because they're exposed to more and they're exposed to it at a much younger age. I have a client who was talking to me the other day about thinking that she might be bisexual, and she's 14. This is not a given who she is and the conversations that we've had, I'll just say that I'm quite confident that had she not seen things about being bisexual, it's not something it wouldn't have occurred to her to think about it. Not to say that there are not teens who very much are thinking about it at her age, right? But for her specifically, in her case, it's very much affected by the things that she's seeing and how she is, she's being exposed to. And what's different today for our kids is we have no control. We have zero control about what they're being exposed to and at what age, right? We already know that the exposure for porn from research is constantly getting lower, but for boys it's about 9 or 10, and for girls it's 11, 12, though some will say that 11, 12 is already late, right? And that's whether they're finding it on their own, it's popping up on their computer, or because somebody older, which is that usually how that happens for boys at that age, has shown it to them. And what we're seeing on the flip side of that is we're seeing lower levels of satisfaction, we're seeing lower levels of perseverance, and a very low self-esteem. And that is something that is really prevalent. This whole idea of not measuring up, of not being good enough, is really, really strong. It's strong in boys, it's strong in girls. We're seeing it to extreme levels. And some of the things that we're actually doing to try to lift their self-esteem is actually doing the opposite. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So how did we get there here, right? How did this all happen? And so using Simon Sinek, division, which I like a lot, and so I like to use it. He talks about 3 categories, which is parenting, technology, and impatience. So we're going to, quickly this evening go through these 3 things and see what it is that's going on in their lives and that we're doing that is making a difference and kind of perpetuating this situation with our teens. So first of all, when it comes to parenting, the first thing is we're seeing what we're calling failed parenting strategies. What are these strategies? The first one is that we tell them they're special. And so when I say this often, when I'm speaking, people are, I see the look on their faces, which I can't see your faces right now, but of this, what do you mean that that's a problem that we're telling our kids that they're always special? Well, it's not a problem that you're telling your kids they're special, first of all, because they are, right? There's nobody like your kid. One of the things that I love telling the teens that I work with is that there's nobody like them. Right? They are unique and special, and it's their job in life to figure out what it is about them that is unique and what their gifts are to give to the world. That's their job. But in our environment, what we've done is we've moved from, my parents or my grandparents' era where nobody ever told them they were special, right, to overcompensating and constantly telling them how amazing they are and how special they are. And we rearrange our lives around our kids, often to the extreme, to make them happy, to make them feel good, to make them feel special. And we really focus on that and don't give enough focus to helping them grow, helping them see where they need to do things differently, because we don't want to upset them, because we don't have the energy for the conflict, whatever it is. We're wrapping them up in this "you are so incredibly special" that we're losing the opportunity to help them grow and understand their weaknesses and strengths. And so they walk around in this world with the sense of, I am incredible, and everybody needs to align themselves with me because I'm so incredible, versus understanding that they're incredible, but so is everybody else, and they need to learn to live with everybody else. The next thing is what I call the want it, got it. So again, I don't know how you grew up, but I know when I grew up, at least in my early years, my parents did not have a lot of money, right? Buying a pair of shoes, and this is the 70s, was a big deal. It was a big deal. Buying a new set of clothes was a big deal. It was not something that we did, definitely not at the rate that we do it today. That changed as I grew up and as my parents got more established. But one thing that always happened throughout my childhood is that I needed to work for things that I really wanted, right? There were certain things that I got, and I got as presents, but I, distinctly recall working, it's kind of funny as the Smurfs came out again, but I really wanted the Smurfs doll. Desperately wanted it, right? And I saved money, and I found ways to earn money in order to save. And my parents, we split it halfway. They paid for half of it and I paid for half of it. And it was this great moment, right? Because I achieved it. Today we see kids who, they want, a phone, or they want some other piece of technology, or they want a spinner, which, everybody seems to want right now, or whatever it is, they're getting it very easily. The effort that they need to put in on their own in order to get it is not the way it used to. And so what happens as a result is they're expecting to get everything when they want it and when it's convenient to them, and not really understanding the value of money, the value of working hard, etc. Now, the next important point here has to do with responsibility and accountability. I see this a lot. I see it when I speak to people. I see this when I was working with youth professionals in the greater New York area. I've seen it in schools. I see it everywhere, which is this phenomena of parents who, out of the best of intentions, are swooping in to save their kids. And this can look like your kid failing at a test or a project in school, and parents calling the school to try to fix things, being worried of them not getting into high school, not getting into college, of what it's going to look like on their transcripts, etc., and kind of swooping in to try to save them. And that comes in school, but it also comes in saving them from other mistakes that they're making. And this is a huge problem. It happens a lot. And what happens is that what we're teaching our kids is that they don't have to worry about actually being responsible for their actions or accountable for their actions, because we're going to save them, right? We're going to come and fix it all and make it all okay. And if you're saying to yourself, well, I'm fixing it with the school, but then I sit down and I talk to them about it, and, because I don't want it to be on their transcripts, but I'm going to take care of it. The reality is that doesn't actually make any difference, because they learn from your actions. They don't listen to your words. Okay. That's true always with teens. They're not actually listening to your words. They're watching what it is that you're doing. And what you're saying is, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. You really don't. Doesn't matter what you do. And that translates for them into other areas of their lives. Okay. It doesn't just translate into that one area where you swooped in and saved them. When I was a teen, I was involved in a lot of really great stuff. When I was a teen, I was a counselor in the Scouts. Did a lot of social stuff. And one of the things I did not do was spend a lot of time in school. I loved school, but I thought the other things I was doing was a lot more important, and kind of had an agreement with my parents that as long as, I graduated high school with, the appropriate things to allow me to go to college, then we were fine. I couldn't fail anything. But that also meant that, I didn't always do homework. In fact, I rarely did homework. I didn't like doing homework. And I went to this very progressive girls' high school. And so, everything was talking. And I remember distinctly going to a parent-teachers conference and sitting there with my father, and the teacher, instead of speaking to me, was speaking to my father. And she said, why, your daughter isn't doing homework. And he looked at her and he said something that I will never forget. He said, am I in high school? And she looked at him very confused and said, well, no, of course not. And she said, well, then why are you talking to me? Talk to my daughter. She's the one who hasn't done her homework. If you have a problem with that, talk to her. And that was my parents' philosophy, which meant that if I wasn't going to do it, that was fine. But I also had to deal with the consequences of facing my teachers, facing the reality of what it meant to not do it. They weren't going to save me. And what I want you to hear here is that we need to stop saving our kids. We need to give them the skills and help them deal with the mistakes that they're going to make, because they're going to make a lot of mistakes when they're teenagers. In fact, we hope that they will, because that's how they learn, and better that they learn with you than later on, right? But that doesn't mean you're going to save them. It means you're going to teach them how to do it. The next thing is everybody's a winner, right? And if you have kids that have been involved in anything, you know that the amount of trophies that are given and medals that are given out are really unbelievable. And we've gotten into the habit of giving a win, a medal or trophy to the person who actually won and to the people who have lost as well. And we think what we're doing is we're making everybody feel good. But the reality is what we're doing is we're both making the person who worked hard feel like it wasn't really worth it because they're not getting the credit they deserve. But also research shows that it makes the people who didn't win feel worse about themselves because they know they didn't actually deserve it. And so that's a habit we need to think about eliminating. The other thing is what I call fake leadership, and I saw this a tremendous amount when I was working with teens in New York. Leadership is the buzzword. Everybody talks about leadership. Leadership is so important. Everybody wants to be a leader. Nobody wants to be a follower, which is a problem in itself. And because, in order to lead, you got to have people following you. And what happens is our kids work really hard to get those titles, right? To be class president, to be the head of their youth group, to have various titles. And then what happens is that they get them, but they don't actually then perform the duties of the title and the leadership that they were given. And I would see it, Amon, I see it so much, and I would work with youth professionals who would say, I don't have time to do my job because I'm filling in for them doing their job, because now that they've got the title, they're off, getting another title, and they're not fulfilling their responsibilities. And this goes back to the responsibility and accountability, right? We want to teach them to be real leaders in their life and with their strengths and what they're actually really good at. Not everybody, first of all, is meant to be a leader. And if you are, not in all areas. And we want them to learn that if they're going to take on something on themselves, then they actually need to follow through with it. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, this is really about always coming first. They come before us. We talked about this when we're talking about being special. It's kind of in the same vein, right? They come often before we do, because we want the best for them. Again, it doesn't come from a bad place. It just comes from this place of really wanting our kids to have the best. But what we do by giving them the best, right? I see so many burnt out mothers who are asking themselves, am I doing everything I can, right? Am I failing as a mother? What am I doing wrong? How can I do things differently? And one of the things I say to them is the first thing you can do is you can take care of yourself. Right? Which sounds counterintuitive. What do you mean take care of myself? I have a family to take care of. I have a job. I have things to do. Yes, you do. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of them. And we've gotten into the habit of putting our kids first to the expense of us being able to have a happy, good life. And if you are happy, if you're feeling strong, it will translate to your kids. If it's all about them, first of all, they learn to dismiss you, right? And your needs and what that means to be a part of the family, but you're also not doing them a service because it affects them later on. So what's the result of all this? The result of all this is simple, and I apologize for those who are looking at the slides. The slides got clicked forward, so ignore for a minute what it says. But really what happens is that our kids then go out into the world, into the workforce, and they find out that all these things that we've been telling them are not true. And what do I mean when I say they're not true? First of all, they find out they're not special. And what do I mean by that? They are one of many hundreds of special kids, right? They're not the only one who is special. Everybody is special. By default, that makes them not so special because they haven't really figured out who they really are and what really makes them unique. They find out that not everybody's a winner, right? There are winners and there are those who don't. They find out that if they don't actually fulfill the leadership roles that they've been given, they're going to be fired, and that they can't get away. You're not going to swoop in and save them when they're in college and they haven't, given in their papers or haven't gotten the grades that they wanted. Though, by the way, there are more and more parents who are trying to do that, and it's driving colleges insane. None of that works anymore. None of these, ways of coping that we've taught them actually work. And that does not serve them, and it does not help them. So what's the next thing is technology, right? And it's huge. And we're only going to be able to talk about a small part of it tonight. I talk about this more in the course that I teach that I'm going to tell you about soon, because I'm launching a new round of it soon. But what I want you to hear tonight is that technology is very addictive and gives the same effect and does the same thing that abuse of alcohol and drugs does to your brain. It's the same exact thing. It's in a much sweeter package, less threatening package, but it essentially does the same thing to the brain. And our teens are at a point in life when their brain is still in development. There are still a lot of things that aren't quite there. I'm sure with your kids that they you say something and you say it a million times and you feel like they're not listening to you, but really it's about where their brain development is and their lack of ability to really understand and really hear you. And what happens is that when your kids get a like on their post on Instagram, or a text message comes in on one of the many, communication platforms, what happens is they get a dopamine hit. They have this like ding of dopamine that releases into their brain. And what does dopamine do? Dopamine is the feel-good drug. It makes them feel good. And so that's why you see kids who are posting, right? So I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and she had just started posting on Instagram. And so we're doing a lot of work on it because I know that she's a girl who sources her value as of right now from other people, right? Not from herself. And she was so excited because she posted this picture of her with like a cat, overlay from one of the app effects. And it was getting lots of likes, and she was so excited. And it was, we got into this whole conversation, and it was very clear, and I know this for a fact, that if teens will put up posts, if it doesn't get enough likes in a certain amount of time, they will take them down, right? Because it makes them feel good. The flip side is if it doesn't, they literally get depressed. And that is why when we look at, what's going on and how they're using their phones, we need to be able to help them regulate that. Because what they're doing is they are moving into an addictive behavior. And if you already have a teen with a phone, you may notice that when you try to take it away or try to get them off of it, they can get very aggressive. If that's going on, then they already may be addicted. You may be seeing addictive behavior, and then the measures that you need to take are more extreme, right? Versus if you're getting a different kind of response. Now, why is this especially problematic? It's especially problematic, again, first of all, because our kids' brain chemistry is being developed now during these years as they're being teens. And so the things that get set at this stage are the things that are going to go with them. People who are alcoholics, who are drug addicts, when does that all start? It starts in the teen years. This is when they first get exposed to it, and that's when it sets in. And so being mindful of how much our teens are on the phone, or what they're doing with it, how they're interacting with technology is particularly important, even more than you could even imagine, right? Because we're setting into their brains certain ways of reaction, certain ways of dealing. And this is a time, right? Until now, you are their world, right? Before they become teenagers, and unfortunately or not, kids are becoming teenagers earlier and earlier, right? We see 8-year-olds that are exhibiting teenage behavior today. But until then, you are their world. You are the master of their world. All they want in their life is the approval from you. Now, it's still true as teens that what they want more than anything, by the way, is your love and approval. But when it comes to the way they run their everyday life, what they really want is their peers' approval. And so inserting that into what's already going on, which is, I'm having a hard time, life is anxious, I don't feel good about myself, I feel uncomfortable in my skin, it feels like there's always an earthquake under my feet, And add to that, I need my peers' approval. Add to that, the way I'm seeking that approval is how many likes I get on my Instagram post, how many, how many reactions, retweets, loves, etc. I get on my Twitter feed, or how many followers I have. Then that can be really risky business. The other thing is they're seeking comfort from technology and not people. And what do I mean by that? So remember I told you about the dopamine effects, right? The fact that when they get a like and somebody reacts, then dopamine is released and they feel good. And so when they're not feeling good about themselves, which happens a lot when you're a teenager, the place that they're looking to feel good is their technology. Because when that thing comes in, then they feel good, right? So there are a lot of reasons why girls post revealing or seductive pictures about themselves. Or, it's a topic for a whole different conversation. But one of them is that they're more likely to get more likes, right? And more attention. And it makes them feel good about themselves in a time when they're not feeling good. And so instead of having a really hard time and going to you and saying, Mom, I just don't feel good, or I need help, or going to their friends even and having a meaningful conversation, they're turning to technology. They're not learning to seek comfort from people. They're learning to seek comfort from technology. And that is a really unhealthy behavior and unhealthy pattern that doesn't serve them, because technology isn't actually helping them, right? It's not actually giving them the help that they need. And what's happening as a result is they're not developing any coping skills. They don't know how to deal when things are hard, right? Other than going deeper into anxiety and into depression. Again, that's why we see so much anxiety and depression at higher levels than we've ever had with teens, is they don't have the coping skills to say, yeah, you know what, that just happened, right? My friends just said horrible things about me behind my back. What am I going to do? How am I going to deal, and how am I going to move on? What do I need to do? And what we know now, I don't want to be the person who says technology is all bad. It is not. I don't believe that. I think technology actually brings amazing things into kids' lives. And I have seen and guided some teens through some incredible projects, whether it's bringing awareness to amazing issues, whether it is, creating and supporting people, whether it's showcasing incredible talent in ways, and creativity in ways that they never could have before. I look at my nephew, who is soon to be 15, who is part of this young entrepreneurs group, and they created this cool invention that I don't have time to tell you about right now. But he's very artistic, and his job was to do all the photoshopping and art around this product as they were trying to, sell it in part of the competition. And so here he is with a bunch of boys from his class, and he has a way, as the sensitive, artistic kid, to express his talents in a way where in the past, maybe that you wouldn't have necessarily had a space in that group to shine. So technology allows for a lot of fabulous things. And as everything in life, it's about a balance. The problem is that teens don't know how to create balance. They just don't. It's not part of the way they are engineered at this stage of their lives. And that's where we come in. We need to help them create that balance. We need to help raise to their awareness things that they are not aware of. That is part of your job. And at the same time, help them create boundaries. One of the things that many parents don't realize is that the rules and the boundaries that you create for your kids actually make them feel safe. They will fight them, they will hate them, but what they do is they make them feel loved, they make them feel safe, and they make them feel like they are cared for. Now, of course, everything is in balance. And part of my goal is to help you figure out around technology how you can do that, how you can both make them a part of the process, make them an active part of figuring out what the rules are, what the boundaries are, because that's how they're going to end up more likely to follow them, but also opening up the communication between the two of you. So when they have a problem, and they will, and when they make a mistake, which they will turn to you. And so it's about finding that right balance, the right balance of how much yes technology and how much not. And at the same time, how to create rules, but also let them learn on their own. The last part we're going to talk about is impatience. So living in today's world is very different, as you know, than it was growing up in the world that we did, and definitely our parents and grandparents. If I wanted to communicate with my friends from camp, I'd have to after camp, I'd have to send a letter, and I'd have to wait for the letter to arrive, and I'd have to wait for them to respond, right? It could be months between letters and communication. Now, when, I want to talk to somebody halfway across the world, as I did today with somebody in the Philippines, all I have to do is turn on FaceTime and we can see each other and we can easily communicate. But that's not the world our kids live in, right? And they want everything now. Why? Because they're used to it. Right? There are very few teens who watch shows today waiting from week to week. I have friends who like, if they're watching Grey's Anatomy or Scandal or whatever it is, don't even bother when the season is running. They wait till the end of the season and then they binge watch, right? We have Netflix, right? It comes out all at once. We sit and we watch Orange is the New Black until it's over, or 13 Reasons Why. We watch it all at once. We don't wait. And it's, we order something in Amazon Prime. We want it now. We don't have time to wait for things to come up. And that's the world for us. It's become an acquired taste. We don't really want to wait, but we know that on certain things we need to. For our teens, it's become the way the world is we expect instant gratification and we expect it now. And there is a tremendous amount of value in learning how to wait, right? How to wait for good things, how to wait things out, especially in a time in life when common sense thinking through is not their strongest suit, right? I love to tell a story about when I was 16 and maybe I was 17 already. My parents had given me the car. I didn't have a license for a long time, but my parents were extremely generous and let me go out. And we were meeting a bunch of girls, we were meeting a bunch of guys, and they were there with a car too, and they wanted to play car tag. And I don't know if you know what car tag is, but it's pretty much what you imagine. One car's in the front, one's in the back, and the goal of the car in the back is to tap the car in front, and then that's how you win, and then you switch places. And I really liked the guy from the other group, and I wanted to impress him, but I had been taught how to think through the consequences of my actions. Right. And so here I had this pull to be liked, to, want him to like me, to play the game, to be cool. And at the same time, all I could think of was, and this is right, like, this is a 5-second process. We're not talking, I didn't sit there for 30 minutes and think it through, right? Saying, if I'm playing this game, I'm most likely going to dent the car. If I dent the car, my parents are never going to give me the car again. And so I said no, right? I had the strength to say no. But the reason I had the strength to say no is because my parents had worked hard enough in all the years before to teach me to go through that thought process. And kids who are used to getting everything, getting it now, moving really fast, aren't slowing down fast enough. That's funny. Slowing down fast enough, aren't slowing down long enough to go through that process. That's just one of the implications. And so teaching them to be patient. And so we see it in other things. We see it, for instance, in as they enter the workforce. And, I was watching a new comedy the other day, and it's this guy who comes back from the wilderness, and he is trying to deal with all these 20 somethings. And he gets, senior position in the company. And one of the girls there says, I can't believe I've been passed over for promotion again. When is it going to happen? It's so unfair. I've been here for 8 months already. Right. And anybody who is not in their 20s thinks that's hilarious. What do you mean you've been here for 8 months and you're waiting for a promotion? But it's an honest reflection of where they're at, because the expectations are, I have great talent, I should be appreciated, I should be promoted right away. And so we want to help them manage and navigate the world that they're going into. And this is really, really important. It's important now, and it's important in the future. So the question you are probably asking yourself is, what do I do with all this information, right? What do I do with it? How can I make a difference right now for my family? Because at the end of the day, that's what's important, is making the difference for your family now. And that's what I want for you. So there are few things that you can do. So first of all, I'm going to explain a little bit more about this in a minute, is this course that I teach, which is a 4-week course, which we really kind of do over 5, which will bring you up to speed on the things that you need to know about what's going on in your teen's world today. You'll learn about apps. We'll talk about following. And most importantly, we'll talk about how to create a family contract, an individual contract to set boundaries and do it in a way where they are part of the process and can help. They will listen to you because it's not you just laying out rules and telling them what to do. But before we get to that, here are some things that you can do and you can do today. The first thing is keep up to date, keep up to speed, keep learning, stay relevant. This is a world that is changing at the speed of light. Every day there are new apps. I give out on my course these worksheets that have a whole bunch of apps on them. And every time I do the course, I have to update it because the apps are changing at a ridiculous speed. And you need to stay current in order to really be able to help them and know what's changing in this world and how it is changing. Because only if you are aware of what's going on, can you have meaningful conversations, right? If we know that our kids are going to be exposed to porn, whether we like it or not, and whether they like it or not at a very young age, then we can preempt it by having the appropriate conversations. So when it happens, they'll come talk to you, right? I have a colleague who works with teens as well. She's got a 9-year-old who went over to a friend, trusted parents, knows the family, and came home. She didn't talk to her for a whole day. And finally, she came to talk to her. Turns out she saw porn at her friend's house. And why? Because her mother's friend talked to her about sexuality, but didn't give her enough information. So what does a kid in today's world do? She went to Google. She went to research. What is the first thing that happens when you Google sex? Porn. And so what do you do when you're 9 and you find this unbelievable discovery? You tell your best friend. And so that's why she showed her best friend. So this girl was in complete shock. My friend said to me, she was like, I knew I was going to have this conversation, but I expected it to be in at least 3 years. I wasn't expecting to have it now. And that's the reality of the world that we live in. So we need to know it, whether we like it or not, right? Whether your kids are protected and in a great environment or not, they're still going to be exposed. Maybe not as early, but definitely later. Another friend of mine, who was very active in her church, her 14-year-old son came back from a church trip where it was a boys' trip, and 80% of the boys admitted that they were addicted to porn. And this is on a church trip. So, we can pretend it's not happening, or that it's not happening to our kid, or that our kid isn't going to be exposed to these things, but the reality is that they are. And so the more prepared we are, the more we know how to talk to them about it, the better we are. The second thing is setting clear rules and boundaries. One of the mistakes that I see parents make all the time is that they think that they're really clear on the rules and boundaries, but they're actually not at all. And, they'll do things, they'll respond to their kid's dirty bedroom, right? Which is a problem that almost every parent has. And respond to their kid coming late to from curfew or, whatever, at the same way. And so the message your kid is getting is, oh, a dirty bedroom is the same importance as coming home late after curfew, which they're really not. And so getting clear on what your rules are and what your boundaries are, and knowing that your teen is also clear on them, will make a huge difference. Set off screen times. And I'm not talking about just daily off screen times, not just, for 2 hours in the afternoon while you're doing homework, there's going to be no screen time. But extended periods of time. Our kids today don't know how to interact with one another. They don't know how to have conversations and meaningful conversations. A woman that I was talking to a few weeks ago was telling me about her 11-year-old who was at a birthday party, and the birthday girl was on the phone the whole time, right? I know from my clients, they often hang out together and they're all on their phones. And so whether it's challenging yourself, your own child to get spend time without all this various technology, or even doing as a group thing, which would be even better. So them and their friends, detoxing for a week, you'd be amazed what will happen. Enlist your community for help. We have more and more live in individual lives. We're not meant to. We're a packed creatures, kind of like dogs. We're meant to live in community and get help from community. And we've moved into a world where we do this on our own. You don't need to do this on our own. Talk to your friend's parent, your kids' parents, your kids' friends' parents, share with them your concerns, share with them your thoughts, decide together what's going to work and what's going to work. Sometimes that's going to work for you and sometimes it's not, but it's worth the effort because you may be surprised. You may find on the other side a parent who's thinking exactly what you are, but is struggling to find community. And the other thing is create a community around you that's going to be supportive, that you feel that you can share the things that you may not want to share in your close community, where you can say, you know, here's where I'm being challenged. Here's where my kid made this choice. And you know that you're safe to do so and going to be supported in that environment and not judged. And whether that is a real life community, if you are lucky to have that, or a virtual community like the community that we create in the course, where there are people from all over the world and we are just geared there to be there and support you no matter where you're at and no matter what it is that you're dealing with. The last tip I'm going to give, just for lack of time today, is go out with your family. When you go out with your family and you hang out, go out with one phone. You don't need more than that. And whoever has the phone, which should be one of the parents, it should be in your bag and should not be out. We as adults are also addicted to our technology. We've gotten used to needing to check our email all the time and see what's happening and follow ourselves. And what happens is that often family time, which we think we're having family time, we're really ignoring each other. So when you go out for dinner or you go out for an activity, just take one phone. You got one phone for emergencies. Nobody else needs their phone. Learn to function without technology, or reteach yourself, as they say, to learn to function without technology. So what I'd like to introduce to you briefly this evening, and I'd like to invite you to come join me. We're going to be starting on June 20th. Our next round is our Social Media Savvy for Parents of Teens course. And the goal of this, and for those of you looking at the slides right now, you can see the URL right there at the bottom. And for those of you who are on the phone, that will come out in email with the replay, is basically it's officially a 4-week course. I'll tell you now that we stretch it out to 5 to accommodate more questions and answers. But really what we try to do throughout the course is go through, in fact, let me actually click into the link itself. What we do during the course is, and you'll go to this page and you'll see there's lots of information about what it is that we're trying to do and what happens in the course. But I'm just going to take you to this little, I can't think of the word right now, but this is some of the results of me still not feeling so great. But basically there's 2 tracks, and what you get during the course is a weekly training, which if you can be on live is fantastic. Then you have the opportunity to ask your questions live. We'll learn together, but even if you can't, that is just fine. The replays go up shortly after the live call. They go up. You can then listen to it at your own time when you have time. Your significant other, if you have one, can listen as well. I highly recommend that, if there are 2 parents in the family, that you both, participate and listen to the trainings. I find that it's a lot more useful when everybody's on board. And so you can go back, you can, you get all the worksheets that come with every week, and you can access that now, you can access it later. It's up for you, and you have unlimited lifetime access to this. You have the opportunity to ask questions and answers. We have a private secret Facebook group, which means nobody can get into it. Nobody knows about this unless I invite them into it, where you'll post your homework, so to speak, after every course, so you can get feedback from me, feedback from the other participants in the course. What we found is that when people share, they get ideas from one another, and the power of community is incredible in terms of the way we can help each other. You get from me templates for a family contract, for individual contracts. We talk about how to do that. We talk about how to have the conversation so it's successful. I give you a list of apps to follow, ones that you should make sure your teens don't have on their phone, ones that they do. We talk about the challenges and everything that comes with that. We talk about, to follow your kids, not to follow your kids, how to do this. And then for those who you want, there's another track which actually includes 2 30-minute private coaching calls with me. So if you want to make sure that you're getting some additional help specifically to where you're at right now, then you can do that as well. And it's really at a cost that I wanted everybody to be able to participate, because I really believe that there should not be a parent today who doesn't have this information. And so the regular course without the private coaching is $297, and the one with the 30-minute coachings is $397, which is a fraction of what I usually charge for my private coaching. You can pay them in 2 payments, so you don't have to worry. If you need more help, more of a payment plan, just be in touch. It's not a problem. I really want you to do this because I believe that you need to have this information. You need to know what's going on, so you then have the tools to face what's going on in today's world and to help your kids navigate this. There's so many things, and I meet parents that say, well, we figured it out, they'll figure it out too. In the world that we live in, that doesn't work anymore. They're not just going to figure it out, right? They're not just going to figure it out. If nobody talks to them, let me just stop this. There we go. If you don't talk to your kids, it's not nobody. If you don't talk to your kids and give them the information, then they're going to hear it from somebody else, or they're just going to continue exploring things that we really don't want them to be exploring. And one of the things I hear from teens all the time is that they would rather not tell you that they're getting in trouble so you don't take away their phone, because the go-to for most parents today is to just take away their phone, right? They don't clean up their room, I take away their phone. They don't listen to me, I take away their phone. Don't do that. Please don't do that. They're more likely not to tell you what's going on because they don't want you to take away their phone, because they can't imagine living without it. And so I want to give you strategies to be able to deal with it and do it the way it is. For those of you who are listening right now and those who listen to this within the next 24 hours, I'm going to be offering also a bonus training only for you on how to make good decisions. It's an extra training that I've created, which talks about how do we teach our kids to make good decisions, which is one of the most critical things that teens need in general, and definitely need today, where they are faced on social media with endless opportunities to make bad decisions. So that comes in addition if you join within the next 24 hours. The course is starting on June 20th. So I look forward to seeing you there. I hope this evening was helpful. I'm going to take a quick look at my phone to see if there are any questions, and I'm going to unmute those of you who are on the line. So if you want to ask a question, this would be a good time. Any questions on the line? Okay, so let me just take a quick look here. Okay, so I see that yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, were you talking to me?
Do you have a question?
It's more that sort of gratitude that it's really helpful to hear all this and really useful. And I realised that I really need more information and to find out more. So I don't actually have any questions right now.
No problem. First of all, I appreciate it. And know that you're not alone. One of the things that I see is that, and I talk to parents all the time.
Just to say, but also, I suppose my question for myself is...
Oh, Heidi, we're losing you.
Thank you.
Try again. Reception must not be great.
What happened there? I don't know. I missed what you said then, sorry.
Yeah, no, I missed what you were saying. Try again. Now I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't saying anything apart from that. I would very much like to do the course, and it is financially out of our possibility at the moment. So
why don't you reach out to
I wondered if there's any other way.
Why don't you reach out to me by email, and we'll talk.
Okay.
And we'll see how we can talk. But what I wanted to say as a response to what you were saying is that what I find with most parents that I talk to is we don't know what we don't know. That's the truth, is we don't know what we don't know. And most of us, the things that I know is because this is what I do all day, right? I talk to teens all day. I talk to parents all day. I spend time doing the research. And so I know things that until a few years ago, I had no idea. I had no clue that this was going on, even though it's been going on for a long time now. And so part of my goal is to help you guys realize what you don't know so you have the tools to deal with it. Otherwise, in many ways, you're essentially being blindsided. And I don't want that for you. I want you to, you know, as hard as sometimes it is to face reality, to say, okay, this is the world that they live in. Here's the great things about it. And here are the places where it's more challenging. And here's where I need to step it up, right? Here's where I need to come in and I need to take the steps to help them through it. And I believe that everybody can do it. And it, you know, and this relates to the question that I saw here in my email, is that it doesn't matter where you're at. So whether you are, at a place where, again, your kid is either a really good kid in a great environment with great friends, or, you know, young and hasn't had much exposure to a phone, or you've got a 16-year-old who's deep into it. These are still things that you need to know, and you need to learn how to do. How this is going to look in implementation will be different for you depending on the age of your kids and where you're at. But the information is the same information. So it doesn't matter where you're at on that scale. The course is still a course for you. Now, we're you know, for some it's already summer. You know, in some places, depending where you are in the world, kids are already out of school and therefore spending a lot of time on their own if they're not going to camps or doing other things. Some places, especially if you're on the other side of the world, then it's always school. But this is more than ever a time to really get on top of it, because our kids have more spare time, i.e. more time to get into trouble, more time to explore things and be exposed to things that they wouldn't necessarily have time to do during the school year. So that's just in terms of timing. Another question here, I thought I talked about this before, but I'll say it again. A question was, what if I can't make the calls live? It's okay if you can't make it live. You know, there are people like me when I do courses, I will do anything I can to show up live. I've been calls at 1 o'clock in the morning because, you know, I'm learning from somebody on the other side of the world, and that's when the call is. That's me. Not everybody is like that. Not everybody can, and that's fine. If you can't, you just listen to the replay and, you know, post your questions. That's what we're there for. So don't worry about that. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me them. Again, as I send out this replay, I will send the link for the course again, so you'll see it. If you have any questions, any concerns, simply reply to any of the emails that you've been getting from me, or just write to me at tova@tovagar.com, and I'm here to help. My commitment to you is that I will do everything I can to keep you up to speed and give you the information that you need so you can be there for your teens and help them in a way that they can actually listen to you, because that's important more than anything else. So thank you for being with me. I appreciate you taking the time, and I will see you either at the next training or at the course, and definitely through email. So have a great rest of your day wherever you are around the world. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
You're very, very, very welcome.